But I'm not willing to, I haven't quite gotten to the point where I'm going to actually.
All right, it is 7:01. I'm going to call the meeting to order. If we could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the December 9th business meeting of the Milford Board of Education. We have a roll call, please, Ms. Griffin. Megan Doyle. Here. Scott Furmender.
Present.
Tracy Irby. Ms. Irby is excused for a family conflict. Tom Kova.
Here.
Lauren Maller. Here. Una Petrosky. Ms. Petrosky is excused for she's traveling for work. Christina Preet. Here. Mike Smith.
Here.
Cindy Wolf Boynton. Here. And Susan Glennon. Here. 8 members present. Thank you. So we have student reports next on our agenda. Is Jonathan Law here?
Yes.
Tonight? Is the Academy here? And is Foreign here?
Yeah.
So Jonathan Law, I think, goes first. Foreign went first last month. Thank you. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening. Thank you and good evening, board members. It is a pleasure to be with you all once again. I will begin tonight with some amazing news. The Jonathan Law Choir performed at the Lamplight Stroll in downtown Milford last Friday, lifting spirits and spreading the holiday cheer. The Drama Club is gearing up for their first production this Friday, Night at the Movies. Break a leg, guys. Our varsity football team secured the win over Foreign during the Thanksgiving Day football game for the 4th consecutive year in a row. The Powder Puff team also made a statement with the 21-17 win against Foreign 2 years in a row. Our sincerest apologies. In academics this past week, we had our National Math Honor Society induction and the World Language Honor Society induction. We are beyond proud of all of our new members. The Advocate had another record-breaking month of views during the month of November. The National English Honor Society is running a holiday book drive for children and adult books in various locations in the area. The group is also planning their induction ceremony for later this winter. The English department is very excited for the humanities field trip to the Yale Art Gallery this week during the half-day PD session. Thanks to Law's advanced placement psychology teacher, Miss Burns, we had another successful year of our Brainsgiving. This fun, informative, school-wide event was held on November 27th, and it was amazing to see all of the hard work from students and the entire school enjoy this highly anticipated event.
In law sports actions, all winter sports at law have officially begun, with all tryouts being held earlier this week. The law community is looking forward to an exciting winter season. 2 law alumni competed in their first college meets this past weekend at Iona and Monmouth. We are so proud of both Jack Bretthauer and Kane Simpson. The school counseling department hosted their annual junior night on November 19th. Over 50 junior students and their families attended this session in preparation for the final years at JLHS and planning for post-school ventures. This Thursday, December 12th, there will be a FAFSA filing session at the Milford Public Library at 6 p.m. The session is open to senior students and their families. An educational counselor with contact will lead the session, and the college and career coordinators from both Foreign and Law will be there as additional support. Following the assembly that the Jonathan Law Courage Club held last week in October for National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, all gym classes learned the importance of recognizing red and green flags in relationships in order to maintain healthy connections with peers. The law administrators from our school counseling department successfully educated students with this important knowledge through interactive group discussions. Our annual freshman forum was held last month with speaker Stephen Hill, who discussed mental health and substance abuse with students and guardians. It was a very well attended and successful event. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you all, and we look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you, ladies. Now we have Foreign, Luke and Debbie.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back here again. It's been a great past month at Foreign, and we're both excited to be here with everyone to continue to talk about our school. So we want to start off the month by giving a special congratulations to our past few Lions Lead with Love students. Boston White, Devon Hines, Shruti Kamana, Carter Krennicke, Rima Maroof, and Winter Leone. These students demonstrate strong morals and consistent kindness to all. We would like to extend a congratulations to the 45 new members inducted into the foreign chapter of the National Honor Society. We recently had a very successful induction ceremony led by our senior National Honor Society officers. Foreign hosted our yearly Thanks for Giving food drive, where students donated non-perishable items for families in need. Donations came from students, faculty, and the Roarin' Foreign Snack Shack crew. Thank you for everyone. Foreign's Rho Kappa Honor Society also hosted a Homes for the Brave drive recently, which turned out to be a huge success, collecting over a dozen boxes of various items for homeless veterans. Currently, Foreign is hosting an Avery's Little Army toy drive, where toys will be collected to help children battling cancer. We encourage students to bring in toys until December 20th. This past month, we sent one of our students, Luna Montanero, to the Connecticut State Department of Education to be interviewed on the concept of belonging in schools. Thank you, Luna, for providing your unique perspective. Earlier this month, Foreign hosted the CMEA Regionals auditions. 20 students from our choir, orchestra, and band were selected for the Regionals ensembles. A huge congratulations to the selected members for their dedication, and we also wanted to give a congratulations to those who from Foreign represented at the ASBDA Honors Band Festival hosted at Maloney High School.
For World Kindness Day, the Save Promise Club and the Student Council worked together to spread notes with positive messages around the school. And similarly, the Multicultural and Diversity Club worked with Habitat for Humanity to paint rocks for the school and make keychains for elementary students. Foreign's If You Love It, Teach It class took a trip to JFK Elementary School this past month, visiting the gym, music, and first grade classes to experience different teaching styles for younger students. This trip proved to be an amazing opportunity for the students to learn how to keep kids engaged and help them grow. Students in our e-commerce and entrepreneurship class have started a student-led enterprise called Foreign Roots, from which students and faculty are able to buy plants. Great job, students. Although we suffered losses in our Powder Puff and Thanksgiving football games, we would like to commend our Lions on their hard work in preparation for the games and for their perseverance this season, and wish them good luck as we gear up for winter sports. Our winter sports seasons are now starting up, including boys and girls basketball, wrestling, gymnastics, indoor track and field, hockey, and boys swimming. The girls basketball team recently faced off against Notre Dame Fairfield in a preseason matchup and did very well. The girls won the first segment but lost the second, however showing out very well. Recently, the World Language Department celebrated National French Week. Students in French 2 worked in small groups to learn to use the imperfect tense, and students across French classes also had the opportunity to enjoy some authentic French pastries in celebration, giving them a taste of France. And to cap off the month, student writers for the Main Street Mirror have been keeping busy. In honor of Veterans Day, students wrote various articles profiling veterans who graciously gave up their time to be interviewed. And the Main Street Mirror's third magazine, their December holiday edition, was also recently released. Great job, foreign journalism. We are very grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all today. Thank you and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So just checking one more time, is anybody here from the Academy tonight? No. Okay. And students, thank you for sharing your remarks with us. You sent them off to Ms. Griffin, and board members. This came up a few months ago. They'll be shared with everybody. So you're free to head out. Have a nice holiday.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of this
See you next year.
year for school. All right, next on the agenda is public comment. I'm going to read the public comment statement first. Speakers may offer objective comments about the school operations and programs. The board encourages speakers not to express personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Milford Board of Education personnel or any person associated with Milford Public Schools. Security issues and matters relating to negotiations and grievances will not be permitted. Consistent with the principles of the Federal Education Right to Privacy Act, discussion of students is prohibited absent parental waiver. Public comment does not allow for two-way conversation between speakers and the board, but we welcome and appreciate your comments and opinions, and all will be taken into consideration. Please note our meetings are televised and live streamed on YouTube. We ask that you state your name and your address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. So who do we have this evening that would like to address the board?
Yes, I am wearing my holiday sweater. My name is Ahlam Jalil. I live at 478 Roses Mill Road. I might get a little emotional because today is a very happy day for us. I want to sincerely thank Dr. Kataya and Mr. Altieri for including Aida on the proposed school calendar draft for 2025-2026. We are incredibly grateful for your recognition of this important holiday and the impact it will have on our community. Tonight, we are honored to have so many students eager to speak and share their heartfelt stories. However, we understand your busy agenda, and we will limit tonight's presentation to only 5 speakers. The remaining students who have worked so hard and made us so proud will record their messages, and we will compile and share them with you to respect your time. Thank you so much for your dedication to inclusion and for listening to our students' voices.
Good evening. My name is Rima Maroof, and I'm here today to respectfully ask for your consideration in making Eid an official holiday in the Milford school system. Doing so would not only foster inclusion and equality, but it's an opportunity for growth. It would serve as an educational opportunity to teach our community about the significance of Eid and its place in the diverse culture of our society. I urge you to consider how much this change would mean to future generations of students. As a graduating senior, I won't directly benefit from this change, but the students coming after me will. Looking around today at all the students and their parents' presence, it's clear that this issue that this is an issue that matters to all of us. So again, I strongly encourage the board to vote on the proposed calendar to make Eid an official holiday in our school system. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening, Milford Public Schools. We believe that Eid should be recognized as a day off in the Milford school system to ensure inclusivity and respect for Muslim students and religious practices. Muslims only have 2 holidays, so Eid is significant to us, and students shouldn't have to choose between participating in their holiday or keeping up with schoolwork, especially students like us that are taking like AP classes.
For student athletes, the challenge is even greater because we already work with demanding schedules. And missing a day off for Eid can put us students behind in both academics and sports. By giving the students a day off, schools will show that they value diversity and understand the importance of honoring everyone's traditions. As leaders of the Muslim Student Association of John High School, we see this as a simple step and as an opportunity to create a more supportive environment for all students. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Leon Kassar, and I am an 8th grader at East Shore Middle School. I have 2 sisters, one in 11th grade at Foreign High School, and one in preschool at Live Oaks Elementary School. I have been very passionate about this topic and always strongly supported the idea of having my holidays acknowledged. Eid al-Fitr is a special day for Muslims around the world. It's the end of Ramadan, a month where we fast, worship God, and reflect on our faith. Muslims deserve a holiday after fasting for an entire month. On Eid al-Fitr, my family and I go to the mosque for group prayer and celebration early in the morning, which overlaps with my school time, causing me to miss school. As I am in my last year of middle school, all assignments and exams become more difficult going forward into high school. When missing only one day of school, you can fall behind in all your classes. This causes lots of stress and anxiety, which makes you not want to miss school for your celebrations. I believe that having the day off for Eid is important because making it a district-wide holiday will also send a powerful message to the Muslim students that their culture and religion are valued and respected, just like any other holiday for other religions. It would show everyone that all different religions are observed and included in our Milford community. I hope the board will consider how including Eid al-Fitr as a holiday can make our school district more welcoming for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, honorable members of the board. My name is Sarah Hamad, and I go to West Shore Middle School. And I live on 20 Mountain Street, Milford, Connecticut. I would like to address having Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha on the Milford School calendar for 2025 and 2026. I believe we should have not only one, but both Eids off from school. In the U.S. specifically, we have a lot of diversity. But while other cultures and religions have holidays that follow them time off from school, our holidays are overlooked.
Some major holidays that we have been seeing throughout the years are Christmas, Hanukkah, Yom Kippur, Good Friday, and more. I believe that because we have not been given our holidays off, that we are not being treated as fairly as everyone else. I firmly feel that we should have both Eids off for the next calendars because A, we don't have to worry about missing anything big in school, and B, because people in other religions will get Eid off as well and will better understand our religion and cultures, like we have learned about theirs. In addition to being able to enjoy our holiday, we are also giving others a reason to learn more about our diverse community. By adding Eid to the Milford Public Schools calendar, we don't have to be absent for any religious activities or school activities. Thank you for your time, and I would sincerely like you to take into account putting Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha in the Milford calendar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Milford Public Schools. I think we can all agree that Eid, to a lot of Muslims in Milford, I think that we can all agree on the importance of Eid to a lot of Muslims in Milford. I moved here from New York City 3 years ago, where Eid was observed on our academic calendar, and we were able to enjoy our holidays with our families without missing any school lessons. It came to a shock to me and my family when we realized that that was not the case in Milford, a town we love so much. In all fairness, our academic calendar observes Rosh Hashanah, holiday recess for Christmas, and Good Friday. Yet, although we have a large number of Muslims in Milford, we do not have any of our holidays off. We deserve to have both Eids off without being penalized or having to miss school lessons. This will make a huge impact for other towns in Connecticut as well. It can be an example that Milford cares about a lot of their students' beliefs and that we have made changes necessary to support us. I feel seen and have a sense of belonging. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sophia Hamad, and I live on 20 Munson Street, Milford, Connecticut. I'm here to talk about the possibility of having Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr added to the Milford student calendar. Eid al-Fitr is the annual Thanksgiving day that all Muslims celebrate at the end of the fasting of Ramadan, whereas Eid al-Adha is a day of celebration when Muslims sacrifice animals in the way of God to celebrate Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail's success in their test from God. I firmly believe we should have both Eids on this calendar because first, we celebrate so many holidays such as Christmas, Hanukkah, Yom Kippur, and Easter, and more, which are all religious holidays in the Milford student calendar, but Milford still does not have any Islamic holidays in that calendar. Second, those who celebrate Eid don't want to miss out on school activities that are happening in school that day, and not to mention having family and friends gathering that could result to have to miss out on the prayers, which is the most important part of Eid. We are all part of the Milford community and we should all feel included, so by adding Eid, both of their Eids in the Milford student calendar, all of us that celebrate Eid will feel more included. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to address the board this evening on any topic? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment and we'll go on with the rest of our meeting. You're all welcome to stay. We have a few things on our agenda before we get to the calendar discussion. We'd love to have you. We'll move on to the chair's report. So the season is upon us. I want to wish happy holidays to everyone here and watching. As a point of information, Ms. Petrosky has decided to step aside from the majority leader role for personal reasons. While she's traveling for work this evening and unable to be here, I've extended my gratitude to her for her support as majority leader for the past several years. So as per procedure, the board members from Ms. Petrosky's party have selected Ms. Wolf-Boynton as the new majority leader, and she's sitting here to my left. So she'll be the majority leader going forward. Reminder of upcoming dates. We have a long-range planning workshop at 7 p.m. on the 16th of this month. That's next week. Don't forget the homework assignment that we have. Community conversation is planned for the January 11th, so please hold that on your calendar. We begin our budget work in January with our business meeting on the 13th, and then budget workshops on January 15th, 16th, 22nd, and 23rd being held as a snow date. As this is our last business meeting of the year, I'd like to also wish everyone a Happy New Year. So once we adjourn tonight, we'll see you all in 2025. See the public. This is our last business meeting of the year. Oh, I'm sorry. So we'll move on to the superintendent's report. It's our last business meeting. Move on to the superintendent's report. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have any liaison reports tonight? Nope. Okay, now we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon and members of the Board of Education. We have an instructional highlight for you this evening, led by Mr. Altieri and Ms. Morrow. And I'm going to hand things over to them and just step out for a moment.
Thank you, Dr. Tyre. Good evening, Ms. Glennon, members of the board. Great to see you all this evening. We are excited to be together tonight, Ms. Morrow and I, to share with you our instructional highlight for the month of December, taking us into updates on our literacy work happening at the K-5 level in district. And really tonight, we want you to think of our process as a journey that we will showcase tonight. Some of the work that we've done over the last several school years, some of the systems and structures that we are continuing to build out and implement in district, and of course, the future of our work around elementary literacy in district.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members of the board. What a tough act to follow. Our students' voices were absolutely amazing. So I am so in awe of our students as they continue to share their voices. Milford has made a very strong commitment to the science of reading and making sure that we are adopting that as we move forward. So you'll notice that we have a little pun on words. Our commitment is to soar, both to the science of reading and to literacy instruction here in Milford. We are always here to make sure that we are doing better for our students. Milford's literacy journey has been about continuous improvement and thinking through how we are always learning from our teachers and our students in order to do better. We want to make sure that all students have access to grade level content and high quality instruction. This journey is not new. In fact, it started in 2019 with an external literacy review. Many of you were here for those reports and remember hearing about the review and the recommendation from those reports. In the spring of 2019, the external literacy was commissioned, and some of the major findings of that report were that we needed to build teacher capacity around foundational reading, particularly in phonemic awareness and phonics. Further, we needed to think about coaching and give teachers more in the moment professional development. And finally, we wanted to make sure that our intervention model was truly serving our students, which at that time we knew it wasn't. Shortly after that review was presented and shared with the board, we slipped into COVID-19. As we came out of COVID-19, we immediately began enacting what Milford already knew it needed. We started with Haggerty, as you'll see. This was a phonemic awareness program that supported our students and our teachers in their journey to understand phonemic awareness. It's 10 minutes a day, and it supports teachers on how to build phonemic awareness instruction. Teachers worked side by side that year with coaches to implement Haggerty, first with heavy scaffolding, and then the following year on their own. In 22-23, the team began researching phonics programs that would support our instructional model, aligned with the CSDE requirements. And those would help build teacher capacity. You'll notice as I speak, the blue is what is happening in Milford, and you'll see the black is what's happening in CSDE. So in 2021, the right to read legislation was passed. In 2022, you'll see the CSDE approved 6 programs, and then in late 2023, the CSDE approved compendiums that were allowed to serve as a compilation of programs. In winter of 2023, we launched UFly as a Tier 2 support, with coaches and teachers using it to support all students. Teachers and coaches were so pleased with the results they were seeing that with the approval of the compendium, Milford moved to adopt UFly as a part of a core resource to support all students in both Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction. Simultaneously, a group of teachers came together to begin to examine the CSDE approved resources to support vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. Out of this was born the Milford Literacy Advocacy Group. This was a dedicated teacher leadership team of 26 teachers and coaches. The job of this team was to review programs and compendiums in May and throughout the summer. Those teachers were then asked to make a choice about what program they would like to pilot. They were given professional learning, coaching support, and program support in order to move that pilot. Teachers were given the choice in which program they'd like to try, and Milford made sure that every grade level and every school was represented within this pilot group. So we were really fortunate that every grade level had an opportunity for one teacher across the district to try out each type of program and provide feedback. Tonight, I'd like to publicly thank this special group who guided Steve and I in the decision-making process. As we look at the piloting time, we actually started in May. So we came together in May of 2024 to start looking at two particular programs, Benchmark Advanced and Bookworms. With our strong commitment with my partner Marissa Akampora and equity, it was really important to us that whatever program we picked, the equity framework needed to be supported and represented throughout. So that was part of what led us to look at these two particular programs. Teachers and coaches met with Bookworms and Benchmark vendors to help them learn more about each program. In June, they were asked to decide which they'd like to pilot, and materials were ordered. Teachers piloted for approximately 8 weeks in September and October. Throughout this time, they had multiple opportunities to give feedback on what they were seeing. So both myself and my colleagues spent time in the building seeing the programs in action, hearing directly from teachers. Teachers were also given the opportunity for individual survey opportunities, and they were given opportunities to come together as grade level teams, as a pilot team, and talk about what they were noticing and the pros and cons of each program. On October 31st, we announced the decision to move forward with Bookworms to our administrators and pilot teachers, and later that day, we announced the decision to all Milford teachers. While the piloting timeline was continuing, we also continued our journey with UFly. We continued making small changes with a big impact. While our advocacy team piloted, we continued supporting all other teachers on their foundational reading journey. Through the support of our amazing instructional coaches, we launched UFly as a Tier 1 resource and further had support from the Florida Center for Reading Research, as well as internal support from a literacy partner to dive into the UFly resource alongside us so that we could explore, learn, and co-teach some lessons. Many teachers took to this resource right from the start. While it provided explicit systematic instruction for students, it also provides a heavy front matter in the book that serves as a training guide for teachers. UFly is used as Tier 1 for all K-3 students, but also serves as a Tier 2 resource for students in grades 4 and 5. We were able to switch our sound wall instructions to make sure that those were also supportive and all-encompassing. And finally, we began teaching in community practice with our literacy consultant, Barb Gulab. This allowed teachers to try out lessons with coaches, consultants, and other teachers to get feedback on their teaching to make sure it was the best that it could possibly be for the students in front of them.
And with these changes comes opportunities for professional learning in the district. And one of the major professional learning opportunities that our educators were able to embrace is the Science Reading Masterclass. So throughout the fall of 2024, we had over 35 educators that engaged in a series of workshops led by and facilitated by national experts in the field of literacy, and also opportunities for affinity groups where we were joined with surrounding school districts for an opportunity to collaborate around best practice and overall bring this learning back to our schools and district. We continue to thank the board for their support of professional learning in the system, And one of these professional learning opportunities that stemmed from our CSDE Masterclass was one of the speakers, Wiley Blevins. As you can see from the picture, our teachers have a really strong following of Dr. Blevins. He's a renowned author and researcher, and we have the opportunity to bring him into district to support literacy and phonics instruction in the month of March. So as Ms. Morrow said, we've begun to make a lot of changes in district responsive to the needs of our educators and our students. And many of these changes that Ms. Morrow and I are going to highlight over the next several minutes have already had a big impact on the success of teaching and learning here in Milford. And one of these small changes that we've made this year is to our elementary schedule, specifically around our ASA, or Academic Support and Acceleration block. And this is an additional opportunity for high quality, small group instruction and support for learners across all of our elementary classrooms, supported by our educators and instructional coaches. So what we want to do is be able to provide you with a small peek into some of our classrooms in district to see some of the things that happen during our ASA time.
Yep. Sometimes change, but we want to go with the letter that most confidence says, right? Let's try this literature. Like, we know what. Yes, that was. It's tricky because it's not a diagram. It's just a yes. How many sounds do we hear? Change everything if you want to change could to would. No, change that one thing. Change it to would in the sound box. Only one thing.
So as you can see, part of ASA is both having instructional coaches and teachers work with students, and that looks different in different places. So you'll notice in some spaces, coaches have a small group of students pulled to the back table during instruction and are working with them directly. In the first clip you saw, one of our instructional coaches was giving immediate corrective feedback to make sure students were learning. And then in another clip you saw one of our instructional coaches working one-on-one with a student in the back. Another small shift we've made is we've continued to refine our coaching model. So this year we had the opportunity to continue to develop our model, and with the addition of ASA, we were able to focus on the work of Diane Sweeney and start to talk about the importance of student-centered coaching, which involves goal setting with teachers based on student data. Further, coaches were able to work with all teachers to help launch UFly as well as the pilot resources. Through this partnership, we are seeing coaches more and more directly supporting students. Another benefit of student-centered coaching, is that there are multiple ways for coaches to show up with students. They can show up through ASA, working directly with students. They can have side-by-side collaboration with teachers, and they can be working in a co-teaching model with piloting teachers. They're also working on those data analysis and responsive teaching pieces, which align with my colleague Dr. Deacon's work around MTSS. As we've mentioned, based on the literacy review, we've already put two significant programs in place. First came Hegarty, which served the phonemic awareness bucket, and then last year came UFly. Then UFly is a tier 2 resource, and then this year it became a tier 1 resource. And again, the recommendation for UFly is K through 2, but we thought it was really important to make sure that our third graders had a strong foundation as well. In the next video, you'll see UFly in action. So one of the things that is the most amazing about watching students with UFly this year is seeing how much they're engaged with reading and writing at such a young age. So as you watch the clip, you'll notice that the teacher is also going around giving immediate corrective feedback, and all students are engaged with making words, breaking words, and adding and changing words.
Awesome. All right, let's take our word and change our word from ride to ring. Good. Try that one again. Says up or you or you. And K says shrub.
notice during UFly there are opportunities for word manipulation, there are opportunities for reading words, there are opportunities for writing words, and you'll also notice at the very end that was a first grade classroom working on fluency and intonation in the voices. As we move forward, we do have a new resource that will address vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. In order to address reading fluency, Bookworms uses a model called shared reading, which talks about choral and echo reading. We also have multiple opportunities due to this board's great support. We've had decodable texts in students' hands for years. And so students are able to practice fluency through those decodable texts. We also have spoken with you before about something called literacy work choices. Literacy work choices are a data-based, purposeful way for students to engage in small group partnership work while a teacher is pulling other small groups for instructional purpose. Shared reading also will support vocabulary development. The words that students will be working on and reading will also be building in a vocabulary routine on a daily basis. We will continue our work around morphology and word study that we started last year, and we'll be making sure that students are having more opportunities to respond to text and also have some oral discussions. Finally, we had many teachers who really wanted to be here tonight, but we know with the holiday season it's a little bit tricky to get time out of your classroom, so we wanted to hear a couple pieces in action. So the first part we'll share with you is a video that we had an amazing grade 1 teacher make for you. Her name is Amanda Kemp. She's a first grade teacher at JFK, and she was one of our pilot teachers. She piloted Bookworms. She's going to talk to you a little bit about that experience as well as how UFly is going.
Good evening, Board of Ed members. My name is Amanda Kemp. I am a first grade teacher at JFK. I wanted to share my experience with you about piloting the Bookworms program along with UFly and ASA in my first grade classroom. I began piloting Bookworms at the very beginning of this academic school year, and along with Bookworms, UFly, and ASA time, I've really been able to meet the needs of all of my students who need to access all aspects of reading. The students in my classroom have participated in echo reading, choral reading, and partner reading throughout the Bookworms curriculum. The beginning of the year till now has really evolved. However, the students have really built on their oral reading fluency. I have seen transfer of fluent reading in decodable passages, decodable texts, as well as classroom library books. Please see a short snippet on the next slide of what partner reading and choral reading looks like in my classroom. Hit the ball, said Danny. Hit a home run, said the giant. This oral language has really been helping us to delve into written responses about texts. The Bookworms curriculum has been a scaffold for my students and has embedded scaffolds to help them build their oral language comprehension about a text, which then moves directly into their written responses. That reading comprehension is done in class, in partnerships, and one-on-one with me as the teacher. But as the students move into their written responses, students have the agency to write as much as they would like about the topic on a prompt, given also a second starter, so that way students have another scaffold to help them. Multi-language learners as well as students who receive special education services have really benefited from having this second starter. It also helps us have a guide if students are stuck on what they need to write. I also have something that I can rely on. Students are really showing an understanding of the text that they have been reading along with me in Bookworms. Students are doing a lot of work independently at grade level texts. Within those written responses and aligning to UFly, where decoding and encoding practice is being done, I am seeing decoding being transferred into our choral and partner readings currently in Bookworms, as well as encoding being transferred into the ELA portion of Bookworms that I'm currently still doing. While I teach students at the back table during ASA time, I have also been seeing a transfer of skills into the ASA time work. Here are two pictures of students who are doing a writing ASA center And students are also participating in library choice, or work choices, which is having that eFly transfer over into other tasks. Something that I have found very helpful for my students is that there are embedded scaffolds and opportunities for responsive instructional strategies in bookworms. These are all based on formative assessments. Although there are some scaffolds that are written into bookworms, I also have opportunities to respond to my students. And for example, these two pictures, social interactive writing for students that may need some more support, and also the use of outputting boxes to help support students with their photography relation.
So you can see teachers have already started to take this and think about what it means for their students. In another example, you have some specific comments from a fifth grade classroom where they were able to co-teach. So we were really have been really fortunate that Ms. Stewart has been a phenomenal partner in this work. So her resource teachers have been a part of the training that we've done and the work that we've done so far. And in fact, many of our resource teachers were a part of the pilot as well. So in this particular fifth grade classroom, we had the opportunity for some co-teaching. The fifth grade teacher and the special ed teacher worked together to make sure that all students had access to grade level and saw tremendous returns on that. So you can see some of their comments there to the right. As Mr. Autieri mentioned, we've really been working on refining our system and structures. We are making sure that teachers are offering explicit systematic phonological awareness and phonics instruction. We're making sure that there is a student acceleration block so that teachers have a dedicated small group time throughout the day. We're working with Dr. Deacon to refine our MTSS processes and make sure that Tier 1 is part of MTSS, and we're really starting with the core literacy work before we move on. We also have continued our work around morphology and vocabulary to make sure students have the language they need to be successful. We've continued work around our small group routines and making sure that all students are being seen in a small group. And we've aligned our literacy work choices to the science of reading. As Mr. Autieri mentioned, we also have continued to think about innovation and thinking about professional learning. So this year, I know you've heard before about our teacher learning subsystems. So three main ones I'd like to focus on tonight are the teacher support networks, the lab sites, and the collegial visits. The approach Literacy has taken this year is really a nested approach. So not only, we are not doing these as one-off, they are all nested together. So our teacher support networks, we had an amazing group of fifth grade pilot teachers. They all use teacher support networks to meet together and to talk about the pilot process. Our lab sites, as we talked about before, we're teaching in communities of practice. This is common for all teachers. When we work with our professional learning consultant, we are teaching in those communities of practice, so we are watching each other teach and deprivatizing that practice. And finally, collegial visits. We've been really fortunate that our pilot teachers have been very gracious to open up their rooms. So not only have teachers who are one person's doing one program, one person's doing another, those visits are happening, but we've also had teachers, now that we've announced what program, we've had teachers calling other teachers and saying, hey, can we come see Bookworms in action and talk with you about how it's going? So the debriefs from that have been really positive. Some other examples you can see here are just in November, we hosted a session together to talk about formative assessment and UFly. So one thing you'll notice, and one thing I started with, was that literacy is never done. So you will never not hear from me about what we're working on. So even though UFly is up and running, we're now talking about how we're looking at each individual student and differentiating within that UFly block. We're also talking about making sure that our educators are up on the most current research, because as you know, the field of reading is constantly being researched. So we are talking with literacy professionals about the latest and greatest research and making sure our teachers have access to that. Literacy will always continue to be progress, not perfection. We always want to make sure that we are innovating and thinking about the very best for our students, and making sure that we are always thinking about continuous improvement and making sure we're always thinking about the next level of instruction. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Austin?
No.
Before we get on to questions, I was just wondering, just so that we're all on the same page with some of the terminology, can you just let us all know what MTSS means? And then, I think it's multi-tiered student supports, but
That's correct.
multi-tiered student supports. And could you just give a quick explanation of Tier 1 and Tier 2?
Sure. So you are correct, multi-tiered systems of support. So that works in conjunction with our current SAT process. So the state uses the language of MTSS. We were using the language of SRBI, but switched to the language of the state. MTSS is a more encompassing framework and talks more about student social emotional well-being as well, rather than just academics. And then, can you remind me?
Tier 1 and Tier 2?
So Tier 1 is core instruction. So for literacy, it's what all students get. So all students get in literacy access to the science of reading, which includes phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. Sorry.
Tier 2?
Oh, sorry. Tier 2 is small group instruction, so it's more targeted and skills-based. So when a student, for instance, in a UFLA, which a foundational phonics lesson, if a student is struggling on a particular area, the teacher then has time later on in the day to revisit that and either reteach, teach in a more explicit fashion, teach in a smaller setting, or any number of things.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Do you have any questions for our presenters? Ms. Mahler?
First question, can you clarify the distinction between the lab sites and the collegial visits?
Sure.
'Cause at a quick glance, they both sound like during the day you're watching someone do something and learning how to do it better.
Yes.
But I know there's a difference.
So I would say the lab sites have a very purposeful debrief afterwards, and oftentimes have a pre-brief. So there's a very set focus. It's usually fairly laser, so we'll walk into a room and say, today we're going to look at formative assessment. We'll have a little bit of a conversation ahead of time about what that looks like, what the teacher might have done ahead of time, go into the classroom and see it, and then debrief about it afterwards. The collegial visit is meant to be a little bit less formal. It doesn't always have that pre-brief structure, and sometimes the debrief is more about programmatic pieces, or it's more about a less specific look for. So it's more about programmatic pieces rather than a laser-like focus with the lab site.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. How regularly are individual teachers participating in either the lab sites or the collegial visits?
So I think that's building specific. I can only speak to what's happening right now in literacy. And I know that it's been teacher directed. So it has been a hands-off. We really wanted teachers to naturally want to see each other in action. So I am not necessarily saying I'd like this many lab sites to happen in the area of literacy, although Mr. Artieri and I are talking about bringing this more large scale and potentially some whole district elementary lab sites as we move towards the shared reading block, so all teachers can plan and share teaching together.
Okay, so it's going to be different right now in different buildings based on who's doing what program, who's seeing, who wants to go and see things. Okay.
Ms. Muller, can I add if it's okay? At some other levels, so it's not the same answer for every school, every level. I guess you're getting that. And there was an example last year on an early release Wednesday. The middle schools came together and asked for volunteer students to stay later. And then some teachers use that time to teach those children. And the 3 middle schools coordinated sharing staff, and they divided up between schools. So one school became a STEM lab site, another became a humanities, and yes, right? So we used that early dismissal Wednesday to conduct a district-wide middle school lab site. So you'll see that's a different structure using different time.
Okay, no, that's really helpful. Those are fascinating. So thank you. One of the things that stood out to me from this that I just wanted to highlight and sort of double underline and give a note of appreciation for is that we have spent a lot of time talking here about coaching and about coaches and how they're used and whether they're focused on teachers and whether they're focused on students and what is that mix, what is that breakdown, and it's always been a little hard to sort of grasp what that looks like, and anecdotally it can change. Building specific, as we say, which can be also classroom specific and teacher specific over time. But I wanted to highlight that what I heard in here, and please correct me if this is not what you intended to say. I hope it is, so please don't. Is that there is a little bit of a shift in how the coaches are not necessarily being utilized, but there is an effort to increase the direct support going to students right now, and that I wrote that down. So I know I specifically heard that piece, and I appreciate that shift and focusing on the goal setting based on the student's specific needs and really taking it more of a shift to what those individual students need, whether they need more, whether they need more to catch up, whether they need more to be met where they are, which is something that we talk about a lot. So just wanted to highlight that I appreciate that shift and look forward to seeing how that shift impacts other various things that we look at through MTSS or different measurements that we look at over time.
And that's been one of the benefits of the ASA block, is that time for coaches to be able to go in and work side by side with kids.
Yep.
And it also helps to obviously enrich the conversation when they're talking with educators about student learning data and being intentional about next steps for educators in the classroom. So it's really kind of bringing everything together, and it's telling a really nice story about student learning.
It sounds like a really great next phase of implementation for an idea that sounded really good and now is moving into that next phase of implementation to really get its hands in there that much more. So thank you for that.
If I could add, if I'm not mistaken, do I recall that this was a very intentional shift based on feedback?
Right. So I'm just I'm just processing the conversation for a minute. So the word shift may not completely represent what happened between last year and this year, but we certainly heard from our constituents, including this board, that we were not clear enough about the role of the coach. And I think Mr. Autieri and I released a Milford moment recently, October or November, I can't remember which one.
It was October.
They're all very exciting, so you should watch every one of them. If you've missed any, they're on our website. So we wanted to make sure that we were explicit in our schedule and therefore required every elementary school to put on paper where the ASA block was, so that in writing we could demonstrate more clearly, right? Sometimes you feel like you are saying it clearly and the feedback you're getting is, I'm not being clear. So that was a good reflection point for us as a leadership team. So we took that feedback and sat over the summer and it's like, all right, so what is the role of the coach? How can we be more explicit about it? How can we really make it about a student-focused, student-led coaching model? So we are still about building the capacity of teachers because we want Tier 1 to improve, because based on our student performance, we're not just talking about 15-20% of kids that are not at level. If that was our achievement data, we'd be flipping the coaching model completely. But we're not there yet, right? So this is a responsive model. So as our student performance increases, the role of the coach and the role of ASA will continue to change as well based on our student needs. So we wanted to be more explicit this year. So if that is the shift, I'm glad you're picking up on it. Thank you for calling that out. And we'll take that feedback to say that maybe we're being using different language and being more explicit about our structures. So thank you for both of your questions.
Other questions, comments? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. Come a long way from SSR reading. Just for understanding, programs are more comprehensive, would have the phonemic awareness, all the other parts that I don't know the terms all well. That would be a program, and compendium would be multiple different kind of actions that each do, and you can choose from there.
So yes, the original guidance from the state was they released 6 what they called complete programs. And then in December of 2023, they released what they called the compendiums. So one of the options for the compendiums was to use our existing programs of Haggerty and UFly in conjunction with bookworms. So that was, that and then also Benchmark Advanced was a late addition that we hadn't vetted. So that's part of the reason why we picked those two. They also both have a very strong commitment to equity, which was really important to us, and access for all students. So that made sure that we saw every student and made sure every student had access.
So, picking up on Ms. Mahler's point and what Dr. Kataya just said there, I think that you're using a lot more data to recognize which students need additional supports, and Ms. Stewart can come in and team can come in and help in that aspect as well and identify students or who needs that from there, or the teachers, or a specific subset of students who might need a different technique or things like that. Is that something that's correct? Because I don't really understand quite what the role of Ms. Stewart's team is in helping that.
So great question. So ultimately, we always want all of our students to have access to the core curriculum, but the core curriculum has to be designed in a way that allows them to have access. So for instance, if we were to only allow kids an opportunity to read books, and perhaps they can't decode those books, but they can listen to them. So we're trying to think about ways in which that we can make sure that all of our students are seated around enjoying a book and really thinking about the asset-based approach. So one of the things that has been most mind-boggling for us, or maybe not mind-boggling, but exciting, I guess I should say, is that when you walk into a classroom and you see students engaged in a choral reading or an echo reading or a partner reading, you don't know which students perhaps might have an IEP and don't, because students are all accessing grade level text. And the conversations that are coming out of that, because we are able to put in some really intentional scaffolds, is what we've been most proud of.
That's great, because it really talks about this program of keeping students on grade level instead of teaching them to the level where they're at. And one of the things we've, I think, discussed as a board is this idea of pushing students. And so if we are constantly meeting them at the lowest level they are, how are we ever going to get them to move up? And our scores have demonstrated, and across the district for a long time, long before this, is that we had a persistent level of students who just were never on grade level. So something needed to change, and I think this is a great step forward and really like the direction that we're going. So thank you.
If I may add, we've talked a lot as a team about acceleration. So in my head, this is the next level of acceleration for literacy. Certainly there will continue to be progress. There will need to be adjustments as we go. We really need to think about differentiation within and making sure that we are meeting every single kid's individual need.
Right.
But I do think we are giving more and more grade level access to students, and we are certainly starting to see kids feel, Mrs. Akampora talks about the sense of belonging. We are seeing a stronger sense of belonging. We are seeing, the 5th grade class that I spoke of. Those kids, it didn't matter which teacher was really their teacher. They just were both the teachers in the classroom, and they were all kids in the classroom, and it was one community, which I think is really a nice feeling as well. So the sense of belonging, I do anticipate increasing as well.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Doyle, if I could jump in also in addition to Ms. Morrow's comments. I don't want to misrepresent. I think that the work for grade level access in the world of special education is work in progress. We are not there yet. Like, we are just rolling this out as a core. There's a lot of work to be done. Just today, Ms. Stewart and I were talking about it is really going to be a shift of mental models, moving away even for our students who don't have an IEP, right? We've talked almost 2 years about that here,
Right.
Moving away from a mental model of intervention to acceleration, because remember that research, the diagram I showed you, where if you start in 2nd grade with the intervention model, that the students' gap between grade level and actual performance grows through high school. It doesn't shrink, right? Well, we're finding state and nationwide that when a student enters special education, that the same phenomena is occurring. That gap is growing, not shrinking.
Right.
So, and for a long time in special ed, we were providing compensatory, basically, getting kids kind of caught up or allowing them to develop tools that would help them access differently. So we have some work to do. Now that is rolling out as a core, so I feel like special ed will be just like one step behind that work, but there's work to be done there. I don't want anyone to walk away thinking, oh, that they're all on board and they're moving. That's
No. It makes sense. I mean, like everything else, it's a mental model shift.
Yep.
And those take time, and it takes buy-in, and it takes discussing over and over and again and reinforcing an idea, and it never occurs overnight.
And Ms. Stewart and her team have a couple teachers out there, kind of pushing on the envelope to adopting some of this core as part of their, let's say, resource support. And not necessarily using the programs that they've always used, right? So it starts with a few.
Right. And then you so appreciate that.
So I just want to make sure everyone is getting that message, that it's going to be a work in progress.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions? Ms. Wolf-Boynton?
I just have a quick follow-up to what Ms. Doyle had asked you. You were talking, Ms. Morrow, about that shared sense of belonging. Is that coming from the content of what they're reading, or is that from the shared ability that they're seeing that they'll share among each other? Could you just explain a little bit more what you mean by that?
So I don't know that I can nail it down yet. My suspicion is that because all students have access to grade level, I think that is making a big difference in the classroom cultures. I think that it has been a really supportive mindset, and I think that kids feel successful. And we know when kids feel successful, just like teachers, it breeds more success. So I think when kids are feeling successful within the classroom, they're feeling like more of a part of the community, and I think that's part of what's happening as well.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, I see none. Thank you so much for the presentation. We look forward to hearing more as time goes on.
Thank you to the literacy team. Okay, so we're gonna move forward with the academic calendar. And I promised, I made Ms. Griffin promise that you get copies that you could read. So the text should not be a font .8. I was a little self-serving, so I could also see it. So this is how I'm going to go about this evening's conversation, because it is not every year that we have an academic calendar survey. So our last survey was in 2018. So I'm going to review the results of the survey, and then I'm going to highlight the changes from the current calendar to the proposed calendar that is before you, and then happy to open things up for a dialogue. Before I jump into the numbers of the survey results, I just want to make a statement. You will see throughout the data that there are some commonalities where parents and staff agree on how to observe particular holidays, when to start school, when to take a break, when not to take a break. You'll see some differences. Please know that this leadership team took all that into account, knowing that, like when I call a snow day, I may not make everybody happy, okay? And I will state directly that our goal was not to make everyone happy with this calendar. Our goal was to ensure that we make decisions based on what we believe in. And that is based on these 4 tenets. Our belief in relationships, our vision of the learner, our commitment to high-quality instruction, and our equity framework. And inherent in that framework is the equity resolution that this board adopted, or the board adopted in December of 2020. So please know that we took all the information to account. We also took a look at these priorities to make our decisions that are represented in the calendar that's in front of you. So as a matter of background, this survey was conducted for 2 weeks in October. October is a good time to survey people. They're still highly engaged and paying attention to emails. And you will see that the respondent rate demonstrates that. There are 2 different surveys with same question. So we pushed out a staff survey and we pushed out a parent survey. We received 1,182 parent survey responses and about 560 responses. You will see that sometimes the data does not show exactly that many because some people may have skipped a question or so. Okay. So let's get to question number 1 related to, and then the demographics of the survey is in front of you as well. You can see the breakdown of families who responded with children at different levels, and then staff as well. So I'm not going to read every single number to you, if that's okay. All right. Question 1 is, when would you like the first day of school? As long as I've been in Milford, this has been a push-pull answer. Some people want it to be before, some people want it to be after. About 47% of parents want us to start after Labor Day, and about 51% of staff members want us to start before. So there you go. And then there's a certain percentage that have no preference. This administration prefers that we start before Labor Day so that we build in a little bit of a cushion in the event that we have a very bad winter. Hence not pushing the school year into June. It is our belief that we have a higher quality learning occurring even in the beginning few days, last days of August compared to the late days of June. So we prioritize starting school before Labor Day. Question 3 is related to winter vacation, if you want to call it the vacation. Going way back in Connecticut history, way back. And even maybe when I was a little kid in New York, we used to have this like whole week off in February. There are very, very, very few districts that still have a full week off in February. We did ask the question though, on how that broke down. You will see the differences there. I'll give the board members in the audience to take a moment to read the results. We even gave people an option to get rid of the little mini long weekend altogether. That wasn't a fan favorite though. You will see about a third of both parents and staff would love for us to take a week off in February. We also see that there is a very strong support for keeping it a 4-day weekend. A little bit of difference as to whether it should be a Friday through Monday or a Saturday through Tuesday. We, in our proposed calendar, kept it as a Friday through Monday 4-day weekend. Question 4 is about spring break. Just a little history here. When I first got to Milford, members of the faith community asked to meet with me and requested that we not include Good Friday in the week of spring break. Because they felt it had an impact on families and tearing them between going away for spring break or being around for holiday festivities and observances at their faith community. So at that point, we did make the change to make sure that Good Friday started spring break, and then the week after was the full week off. You will see how our parents and staff feel about that. I'll give you a minute to read those results. So you'll see on the parent response, about 50% want to keep it with a Good Friday starting the break with the week after, and about 58% of staff members agree with that as well. All right, so the following questions were preceded by a description, actually a definition of what a holiday would be in this survey and what an observance is considered. An observance, I really could say that word, observance is when school is in session and there may be opportunities to learn about the special day, and a holiday is when schools would be closed, allowing each child and family to recognize that day as they so choose. So we came up with this list of holidays just by observing and reviewing other holidays that may or may not be recognized on school calendars throughout the state of Connecticut. So we started with Boxing Day. I'll give you a moment to read those responses. So you'll see that parent group, there were some, a small percentage wanted the school day off. Many had no preference, and over 50% preferred to observe it in school with school open, and staff support similar results. Okay. Question 6 is Columbus Day, or Indigenous Peoples Day. I'll give you a moment to review those results. Here we have a little bit a higher percentage of people preferring to have that day off, but also a healthy percentage of individuals keeping it as an observance, and school is in session. Question 7 is Eid al-Fitr, and you will see the responses there. Holiday being schools closed, about 20% of parents, and about the same percentage, 23, on the part of staff members. And I will say that this administration is recommending that we observe it as a day off, holding true to what we believe in our equity framework, and aligning with the equity resolution of the Board of Education in December 2020. And in my work, our work, Ms. Autiri's work and mine with the Muslim community, we have met numerous times and numerous conversations. I've had communication via email, letters, personal letters from students, the community at large, and through our growing and learning, we firmly believe that this is a day that we should take as a holiday in Milford Public Schools. Clearly, that is up for the board to make that decision. Recognizing Good Friday as a holiday or observance, you will see very strong support for that, schools being closed. Recognizing Hanukkah, I'll give you a moment to read that. This is almost a even split, whether it's a holiday or an observance. Recognizing Juneteenth, that is if school is in session, so it will be my preference that we're not in school on June 19th. Everyone else is thinking the same. And you'll see that school being in session, there's almost 50% on staff, parents, and then school being in session, about 43% of staff. You'll see the percentages there. Rosh Hashanah, I'll give you a moment to read those. Less of a split than Hanukkah. Much more support here for school being closed. I'm sorry if I'm moving too fast. Good. All right, Three Kings Day. School is in session, overwhelmingly supported by parents. School being in session, about 50% of staff members. We also have about a third staff members having no preference in that area. Veterans Day, you will see about a 50-50 split here, just rounding up here. I will tell you that we, as administration, prefer that we are in school for Veterans Day because of the incredible honoring, recognition, instruction about our veterans. I believe our students will lose a large piece of learning when it comes to honoring our veterans. So we are recommending to this board to keep this as an in-school observance. Yom Kippur, holiday being school closed, about 48% of parents, and then school closed, supported by staff by 74%. And then question 5 is please provide us any other holidays or additional comments. We summarize those here on this slide. Parents and staff both asking us to revisit the early release days for professional learning. Parents and staff both asking us to align spring break with other towns and districts, which is virtually impossible since the state legislature decided to move away from their regional calendar requirement. I did have Ms. Griffin do the homework about when spring break is occurring this particular school year, and it is all throughout. It would just depend on who do you want to align to. I think we have staff members that come from more than 30 communities in the state of Connecticut, Ms. Capazna, so we will make some people happy and some not. We were unable to accomplish that goal. And then other holiday observances here, parents asking, and then staff asking that we move parent conferences to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We are able to accomplish that in October, not in March because of the addition of Eid al-Fitr. And then staff asking us to consider additional holiday as well. So if we move to the calendar, please. As just matters of background, contractually, teachers work 185 days, so it is not up to us to say, let's bring teachers in another day. We'd have to renegotiate the contract, and that would have a significant budget impact. And 181 of those days are student contact days, and 4 of those are days for professional learning. So a change we did make in the calendar, and this was largely driven by teaching and learning, and makes a lot of sense for us, and that rather than having 2 professional learning / training days in August, 1 in November, 1 in March, we decided to recommend that there will be 3 days in August, giving us more time to prepare, particularly when you hear things about the literacy program. We're gonna need to do district-wide training and programs like that, new curriculum, et cetera. So rather than waiting till March for the additional day, we also heard some dialogue last year, some feedback that there was a desire of keeping weeks more whole. So that was one of our efforts to move out of March, that PL day, and moving into August before we get started with the school year, and keeping the 1 in November. And you will see that we reduced the number of early release days from 11 to 8. We also looked at the distribution of those. I believe if you'll note, there is not one in October, giving consideration to the early releases because of parent conferences. And then you'll also see the addition of Eid al-Fitr for a holiday in March. Please note that that holiday changes every year, so it will not always be March 20th. It'll be at different times of the year. And as I already mentioned, the October conferences will be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, while the March conferences remain Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That is the summary of the survey results and the proposed calendar as it sits before you, and we are happy to take questions from you.
Thank you, Dr. Kataya. Questions or comments from board members? Ms. Priya.
Question on starting, having the 3 days professional, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, starting on Thursday. When would the teachers have time to get their classrooms prepared? Do you go
within those 3 days?
Within those 3 days?
Yep.
So they'd be allowed to leave at a certain time to go and set up? Okay.
We're required to provide them with time in the classroom.
Got it. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And then one of the, so I absolutely appreciate all of the feedback and all of the work that was done, because I did count up, referencing the August 26th meeting where parents had mentioned keeping whole weeks. And I could relate. I remember I was like, oh, this week has a half day, right? So there's always, so I do appreciate that. I did count up the full weeks, and it is significantly different, so thank you, appreciate that.
Yep.
And the reduction of 11 to 8 on the half days, I think that's helpful. One of the things that came up at the KID conference that I thought was interesting on the student panel, one of the questions to one of the students were, how does a district handle the many holidays, or be it religious or otherwise? She had brought up an interesting concept of a floating holiday. I did pull from 5 similar, surrounding, I shouldn't say necessarily similar, surrounding districts to kind of see what they look at as days off or observances. Just to give a quick, so these are beyond your usual expected days. Orange does still give Columbus / Indigenous / Italian Heritage off. West Haven gives Columbus / Indigenous / Italian Heritage off. West Haven also gives Veterans Day off. West Haven does give Eid al-Fitr off. New Haven gives off Indigenous / Columbus / Italian American Heritage. Three Kings Day and Eid al-Fitr. Stratford does give Three Kings Day off, and Bridgeport, they call it Italian Heritage Day, and Three Kings, and then Eid al-Fitr. So taking that into consideration and looking at the days from September 25 to June of 26, I'm wondering if we might consider or minimally have a discussion about a student being able to have a floating holiday for whatever they may, Veterans Day, for instance. I totally support, and I know that our schools do an excellent job with bringing our veterans in and giving their stories and having the students appreciate. But at the same time, you could have someone who's has a family member who they do want to have the day off from a military family. So Three Kings could be the same. Diwali is another one, and I just noticed that when you release this, in other written comments, it does have Diwali on there now as well. So I did pull all those days. Diwali, Veterans Day, Three Kings, Columbus, Eid al-Fitr, and I'm wondering if we could have a discussion on those days, knowing it's a floating holiday. The teachers and staff would be aware not to have trips or big tests or anything that would encumber the student and feeling absolutely, not encumbered to take the day off and celebrate. And I know we had comments too at that same meeting that sometimes the friends who don't necessarily celebrate the holiday, they'd like to be able to have them celebrate with them and have them learn about it, which I think would also, they could take that floating holiday as well. And know that their friend is together, they're having that, they're being exposed to their customs. I do like, Dr. Kataya, in your language, you did say days that are special and relative to their heritage and culture. Mm-hmm. So I just think that expands to many different cultures. And I do think, like I said, I'd like to be able to kind of explore that as a topic, having a floating holiday where a student knowingly can just take it off without any worry that they're missing something, and just have the teachers know that on those holidays, on those days, that there won't be anything. It could be review day or something. Nothing heavy or nothing a test is being considered. So I think that's sort of what I want to put out there, just for discussion if possible.
Any thinking on this, Ms. Mahler?
So I've been thinking about the same idea, hearing it from the same student, presenting her suggestions on how her district had kind of navigated some of this and how she and her friends and others had thought about it, and had kind of gone through the same thought of whether that would be something that would help us here, and whether or not students having a floating holiday where they could take that. And then the conclusion, my landing place in that logical thought process and running through all the holidays that you mentioned, all the potential holidays or observances that someone may want to take, whether it's Veterans Day or Italian Heritage Day or what that may be, my landing place was that I think Milford does a really good job, and I'm not going to get the number right, so please correct me, with every student having a number of days, of personal days that they can take right now. And I don't remember, it's 7, it's 8, you have to have a note at 9, there's something in there with whatever those numbers are.
That's excused absence but there's also personal days, right? Like
well,
mental health.
There's both, yes. There's 2 of those, but then there's also the unexcused absences amount that you can have that can be used for things like that. If you had the family event and celebration around Veterans Day that made sense for you to be gone, or you had the moment and it made sense for you aligned with your parents' work schedule or with a sibling's other school schedule something where you would take Indigenous Peoples' Day or whatever that may be. And to me, that solution almost made more sense for us, does actually make more sense for us here, because it gives that more than just one, but it gives that flexibility for students to be able to adjust and have those days that align with what is important to them and their families and their culture and their heritage and whatever other reasons they may have for that. And that having specific days on here that if we were again, another thought process just as part of the discussion, the floating holiday idea to me necessitated removing some of these holidays from the calendar, because then you would use your floating holiday for those things. And that felt like it was moving in the wrong direction. So to me, the balance between what you're saying, where students can have the flexibility to observe with their family in any way that they see fit, gets covered by that fairly generous, I think, number of unexcused absences and the personal days that our students have. And that was just on that particular piece, not addressing the whole calendar, but I love that you brought that idea up, because it was one that totally had stuck in the back of my brain and been percolating around for a while. And, you know, driving in the car and you're like, what's that floating holiday idea? And then this is where I always landed on that. But I love that that's the discussion, so.
Ms. Doyle?
I do not support the floating holiday. If we were to go that direction, I would suggest removing every single holiday that we are not mandated by the state to support, because it's too logistically impossible for us to manage. How are we going to manage that we already have 2 Jewish holidays, 2 Christian holidays, the new, if we choose to add the one, we're at least 5 that I can think of, plus whatever else. I think we're just too much opportunity for disruption in the classroom from various students missing for those. I think we already have a process in place that Ms. Muller discussed of unexcused absences. Parents have the opportunity to take their children out. If that's so, they could have an excused absence. We can create a policy to support that type of situation. However, I don't think it's appropriate for us to have a floating holiday. I think we can do a better job, because we heard comments from students that they would miss important things on their holidays that they would take off. I think we can make a better effort to ensure that there are not tests scheduled on this holiday that we don't recognize. I think that's an opportunity for us to go, but I don't support a floating holiday in addition to what we have now.
Dr. Kutaya, can you clarify if a parent opts to keep their child home for a religious observance, for instance, is that excused or unexcused?
Yep, I think you and Ms. Muller are referring to your policy 5113, and it is 9 days. And under excused absences, as long as the parent sends in some type of written excuse, that would be excused. And then on page 2 of the policy, starting with number 2, for the 10th absence and above, students can be excused from school, and one of the allowable excuses is the observance of a religious holiday. And then number 3 on page 3 gets into, I think what you were headed into, Ms. Glennon, and that is the mental health days. So I think your board policy already allows for a quote-unquote floating holiday, based according to this writing. The only hang-up would be asking teachers to work around everybody's preferred celebrations. I think now we're really handcuffing. So if Steve's taking this Friday off for his, and next Tuesday is mine, and then, so I think the best scenario is working with individual students and understanding through our work with Ms. Lakampora how to make
I agree with Ms. Doyle in terms of how do you identify what's observed and what's a holiday off. I know that there is a state law that schools cannot be open on any state holiday, recognized state holiday that takes place in December or January. So, for instance, Christmas and Martin Luther King Day are state observed holidays, so we have to be closed on those days. But the other holidays are not, there's no specification for that. And I think it's difficult as a district when you're trying to be inclusive and support our equity resolution and our work in that direction. It's very difficult to say we're going to designate X day as a school closing and a different holiday as a floating holiday where families have to choose. And we heard from students at the last meeting who indicated, I had to choose between my holiday and a big test we were taking, or my holiday and something else. So I think, I do think it's incumbent upon staff to be aware of students' very specific religious holidays and work with each student individually to help them and support them as they take their days off. But I think we've landed on a sweet spot for now with this. I think, I also have been floating around the idea of a floating holiday in my head. Came to that conclusion, after hearing students speak last month, that it's probably not, that I didn't really think it was a great idea. But it's great to have the discussion in the public. Anybody else? Ms. Mahler?
So to comment on the calendar itself, shifting back to that particular subject, I want to thank and commend the leadership team for listening. Because the calendar, as we've pointed out previously, the calendar that we are currently operating under, which we have heard concerns with, both from parents who have reached out in emails, spoken at meetings, those of us who have experienced it in real life have brought it up as well, that this was a calendar that was the way that we time the approval of our calendars, mean that the calendar we approve now in December is one that we will not fully experience until we've already approved it potentially for a second year. So pretty much any calendar that we approve gets a 2-year life cycle, unless we choose to make changes very obviously and very quickly the following year, if that's what we consider quick. So we now have a 1.5 years under our belts of the current calendar, and some of the very specific challenges that it has raised for families are very well corrected for in this new calendar version. And I, for one, and have already heard from other parents who are very pleased with the way that this reduces the disruptions to students and families for needing to come up with aftercare, child coverage, a half-day learning here, you get 2 days under your belt, and then you have a half-day off, and then you come back. And as much as we would like those hours on paper to add up to the same outcomes, they just do not. And that's for families and for students, period. So I very much appreciate that there are 3 fewer half-days in here. I like that the professional development full days have shifted a little bit, so the extra one at the start of the year still provides the time for teachers and the learning for teachers that we all know is important, but does so in a way that's just a little less disruptive. And I am thrilled and honored and happy to be able to vote on approving Eid as part of our calendar. So I am very grateful to the communities and the families who spoke out and who came out and who made this such a respectful, ongoing dialogue this time to get us to this point. So I think that is a very great change here. The one highlight that we often hear sometimes is, or at least that I have heard often, is the question of Veterans Day. And having many years now under my belt of watching Veterans Day celebrations in our schools, fully support staying in school and allowing that educational, learn, shared experience with our students, because it is just one of the single most moving days that every school has. If you've not seen that or experienced that as a family member, a community member, it is really truly something special. So again, I want to thank you. One of my favorite numbers, and I raised this in our August meeting when we talked about it, is that under our current calendar that we're changing, we have 1 period in the fall and 1 period in the spring where we have back-to-back 5-day weeks. That's it. Only twice in the year did we have 2 back-to-back full school weeks. And under this new calendar, by my quick count, we have 6, which gives us 12 full weeks that are actually occurring back-to-back to allow that full momentum to continue. and not be disrupted along the way. So again, thank you for listening and taking that into account. And there are so many considerations to be balanced, but very much appreciate the effort to do so here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to voting on this whenever we get the chance.
Thank you. Any other
Ms. Glennon, I
comments?
failed to point something out.
Yes.
We don't normally take January 2nd off, but I didn't think anyone would come back to school on the 2nd. So we chose to not hold school that day, so please know that that is not a typical practice. Just like this year, the 23rd, 23rd, right? We didn't think anyone would come back for that one day, so it's just happening on the other side. So sorry I didn't point that out.
Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. I think I'm happy with the calendar. I agree with it. I think the professional learning days served its purpose. We needed that ramp up in terms of professional learning post-COVID and from there. And based on the feedback that we've heard from the community, from all the sources, I think they serve the purpose for their time, and now we can move forward with less days, and moving that I think will be positively felt in many ways. I'm also happy we're still continuing to start school before Labor Day, because I think it's important for us to be out as early as possible based on the air conditioning and the conditions of the school. It can still be hot in August, it's just less likely, but it's always usually, like, once we start getting into the teens, it's always questionable in here.
You know, we've done surveys in the past. I don't know if it was pre your tenure. Mr. Riccitelli, I can remember talking about this, where they really looked at the degree days in June and August, and there really is, they're very similar, and there's not really a huge difference. And there is, you know, as I think we all know, we experience anomalies. When I know the end of August one year, when my granddaughter was born, it was so cold, I was in long pants, you know, almost in a sweater. It just happens. And but I think it's kind of a coin toss as to which you go with. So in terms of the degree days.
I think, but I like, at the end of June, you feel it a lot more because you're kind of done with the
Right,
year.
well, that's, I think, the point that you made, is that
Where like August, we're like, oh, it's hot.
you're
it's
more
okay.
productive at the
We'll go to
beginning than
school.
at the end, so.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Could I ask for feedback on spring break? That was the other one that we kept as a Good Friday plus a week. I think it's harder to pull that off. Sometimes Good Friday's in March, you know, like it's like really early. But we felt comfortable keeping it attached to that Easter holiday. Does that work for everybody here?
That's for me. I think the other thing that I've learned that parents appreciate is consistency. So while there might not always be a change in a manner that they like, as long as there's consistency, so that they know what to expect. We've heard that before as well. So Ms. Preet, if you are, you know, if you feel that that's something you want to pursue, you can make a motion next month when we vote on it too.
I really just wanted to bring up the discussion.
Sure.
I just wanted to air it out, that's fine. Yep, no, I'm good.
We'd likely need policy change if that were to occur.
Right. Any other questions or comments? All right.
Next order of
We're going to
business.
vote on this? Oh, no, we don't vote
It's
on it.
first read.
Sorry, that's right. Sorry. We'll vote on this in January.
We are hoping that you'll vote on the Board of Education meeting schedule, though, which is in your
Yes.
packet for review.
So
We'll
this
count on your
schedule
eyes.
is, it's just like a pro forma technicality, identifying our business meeting dates and our committee of their own meeting dates. Our regular meetings, they have to be put on file, so this becomes our schedule once we've done this. And I think it does need to be done at this meeting. It needs to be filed with the Secretary of State and the City Clerk's office. I think in looking at this, Ms. Griffin, there was we found only one Tuesday that we had to meet in Memorial Day week. Do you have a motion, Ms. Boynton?
Yes, so I make a motion that the Board of Education approves the 2025 Board of Education meeting schedule for 2025.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion, comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Next order of business would be to turn things over to Ms. Capazna for the annual Talent Management and Development Report, and she'll follow that with the monthly update as well. Ms. Capazna.
Great, thank you very much. So in my annual summary of what kind of went on in the Talent Management and Development Department, it goes from the time period of 11/1/23 to 10/31/24. I was unable to get the report last month, but we kept the time period the same. I don't want to read through it exactly. I know you've had hopefully some time to look it over. I do provide a lot of statistics, numbers, nothing really new in some of this, such as the fact that we posted 277 positions this year, hired 248 new employees, processed lots and lots of payroll action notices. We still fingerprint here in-house in our office. That's going well. But there are things I do want to point out, such as the decrease in interns, which you may hear about in our budget later on in the winter, but we only have 9 interns this year in the district, and we do budget for, I think, 15 to 16 each year. So that number is going down, which is a bit concerning, of course, that students are not going into the field of education. We have 13 student teachers that were placed during this period, and 6 more coming up next in this coming spring. We still partner with universities Quinnipiac, UB, Sacred Heart, Southern, Fairfield, and UConn. But again, getting into the staffing shortages that we're seeing more and more evidence of. Milford, we've gotten lucky along the way. We're still filling positions, but the numbers aren't there. The number of applicants, especially, I always like to point out, unfortunately, our special ed openings. But, so special ed in particular, we had 10 special ed teaching positions that we have filled since June, which is pretty abnormal. We know that these teachers are in great demand throughout the state, so people are poaching our teachers. And they can really go anywhere. I think I did an analysis the other day for Dr. Kataya. If you look at CT REAP, which is one of our places where we post our openings, there was like 185 special ed openings, or maybe it was 85, but it was a lot. So that's a concerning area for us, and we have some plans to address it throughout the year, which we'll get into. The per diem pay for substitute teachers is $140. We are noticing that alone is also not, at one point it was a great amount, but we're going to probably try to increase that in this year's budget as well. That has to do with the minimum wage also being increased at least once a year for the past 4 years. We are hosting a teacher in residence this year over at JFK, and we're hoping to do so next year as well. So that is another initiative that we've kept going. We actually increased our participation in recruitment fairs this past year, which we found to be quite helpful. We went to events at Fairfield, Quinnipiac, Southern, Central, Eastern, UConn. We did a CEA job fair over at Derby High School, and then the RESC Alliance Recruitment Fair, which centered in on recruiting minority candidates. But we also held our own recruitment fair in July, and 65 people were given, they applied for positions, were given instant interviews through many of our members of management that were there. And we actually had a direct result of hiring 9 people from that fair. So that was really well attended, and it was a teeming rainstorm that day. I don't know if anyone remembers, but we did have a lot of people that came out to that one, so that was exciting. We developed a new TMD kind of area of our Milford Public Schools website, which showcases not only our job openings, but our benefits, our contracts, everything that if you were looking for a job in Milford, you could go to our talent page and see everything that the district can offer you in one snapshot. So we've got a lot of traffic to that area, and that came out really well. We're trying to kind of keep up with that and add new things as we as they come up. We are trying and feel we're being successful in leadership and growth opportunities for teachers, our own teachers, as well as bringing in, again, through developing the pipeline, ideally, kind of marrying those two. We started a teacher ambassador program and partnered with both Smith College and Sacred Heart University. I think hopefully all throughout the year you've seen some of that. But those are both well received from our teaching staff as well as from the two universities. So we feel that by doing partnerships such as those, we can increase, again, not only growth opportunities for our teachers, but pipeline opportunities to get future hires into Milford Public Schools and into education in general. We standardized our hiring practice. We've always had a hiring practice, but we've reduced it to we have a hiring manual, we have a site, we have different online forms for our principals to fill out. We have a JOT form, which fills into a table, so we can keep track of our statistics a lot easier. And all the administrators were trained in that. It just really got off the ground not too long ago, so people are still getting used to it. But I think we've probably used it, I don't know, probably a dozen times so far. So people are like, do I have to do that form? Yes, you do. Because it only works if everybody does it. But so far that's been well received. And it's also kind of one-stop shopping. So reference, if there's ever a legal issue, all of our forms and for each hire are online. We can retrieve them a lot quicker than going to some file cabinet and trying to, and hope that it's there, hope the information's there. So that was a big accomplishment of ours. We also developed a monthly newsletter. I don't know if any of you have seen it or been able to check it out, but it's on our TMD website as well. It's a monthly newsletter that highlights various reminders, tips. We have tech tips in there, we have wellness tips. We do a little contest where people can win a prize. And anything that people want to contribute to it, we ask for their feedback as well. So that's been very well received and very well read. We have obviously data on how many people read it and whatnot, so that's good. We have a new online exit survey for resigning and retiring employees. That is sent, a link is sent to every employee. If they tell us that they're leaving, they have the opportunity to do an in-person interview, exit interview with me as well, should they want to give me additional feedback. And I would say every 5 or 6 people that fill out this survey say they want to meet in person, and I've been compiling data on those interviews as well. And then now our next step, and this is all under the area of employee retention, like why are people leaving, why are they staying? So our next step is to create protocols for a stay interview. So we're hoping, if Julie hadn't left, we would have been well underway, but we're kind of at a standstill now, but we're hoping to get that off the ground before the end of the year as well. Our leave of absences, we do a lot of work with coordinating leaves, getting long-term substitutes, FMLA, that procedure has been digitized as well, if you will. So if somebody needs to go out on leave, they get a digital form, whereas before we were going through the Department of Labor and downloading them. So we're trying to keep as efficient as possible. Obviously, all of our personnel files are now digitized. That project's over, so that can be put to bed. Let's see, what else? We did contract negotiations with the administrators union this past year, and Title IX, as some of you may know, the regulations changed once again, so we are navigating through those new regs. We had 38 new teachers attend the Milford Teacher Academy, the MTA, the 4-day professional learning, orienting staff to the vision, mission, and goals of the district. The TEAM program is the teacher education and mentoring program in the state for all new teachers, teachers that are new to teaching, not necessarily new to Milford, because if you've already done it once, you don't have to do it again. We have 16 teachers currently enrolled in TEAM. We put out an application for our current teachers to be trained as team mentors. We have 10 new team mentors in district. And obviously we do the teacher, para, and parent of the year every year. That went well this year. Let's skip down to the creating and submitting the district increasing educator diversity IED plan. You guys were told about that earlier in the year, and that was approved by the state, we're happy to say, and we are meeting, I think, next week or the week after as a committee to make sure that we're monitoring the progress and updating our initiatives in that area. So we'll continue to stay on top of that. We had another busy hiring season this summer, hired 40 new teachers this year, 37 this summer, and 3 from last year because of the time period that I'm mentioning here in this report. The 40 new teachers represent 21 distinct certification areas coming from 17 different towns, and 17 are also from Milford directly. We hired 3 new administrators, all in the PPS area, and I think you've met all of them, Nadine Macklin, Sarah Collette, and Kim Dunn. We're happy to have them on board. We had 7 teacher and 1 administrator retirements this past year, and there were also 28 teacher resignations and 2 administrator resignations this year, to give you some statistics in those areas. So, I'm sorry I didn't touch on all of it, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions from board members? Ms. Kapazna, I was wondering how, in terms of the data, like the number of posted positions and hired positions, resignations, how does it compare to past years, or is it similar? Do you see increases in any areas or decreases?
So as far as the postings, we were a little bit higher in the postings. The number of people that we hired, it was pretty similar. The resignations, we had a lot more last year, and I did need to touch on that. So we hired 57 new teachers last year and only 40 this year. So you can see that obviously a lot less people left. We had 10 teacher retirements last year. So what did I say, 7 this year? Mm-hmm. And then 43 teacher resignations last year, which was much higher than the 28. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that just speaks to shortage areas, recruitment elsewhere in the state, people struggling to hire in some of these areas.
And the exit interviews, is that, I guess you have to offer it, but it's optional?
We have to do a survey, so it's a comprehensive online survey that they can do, and then the exit interview, the in-person is optional.
Does everyone do it? All the people that leave, I mean, they're not required to fill out the survey, right?
No, most people do fill it out. I try to, one thing that we were struggling with in the beginning is if they left and they didn't fill it out, we don't have their personal email address, so we're trying to gather that before they go, so I can remind them, kind of bother them afterwards and say, please, could you just give us some feedback? It's pretty quick if, you just want to do the online portion and not meet in person. But I have, had a few online, in-person meetings as well.
I like the idea of a stay interview to get some ideas of what we're doing right, and it would be great if that could be made a priority. I know you're short-handed again now, but...
No, I know, and also because I think...
I remember hearing about it before. Yeah.
Rather than ask them, why are you leaving? Why are you staying? And, I know, that's great, you're happy here. What else can we do? What else do you think we can do as a staying employee to get people to stay rather than leave? You know what I mean? It's a different perspective, I guess.
Sure. Right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Ms. Preet?
I do want to echo that as well. When you said end of year, you mean the end of the school year, June, for the stay interview protocol and process?
Oh, no, just as soon as we,
Okay.
We should have something in place well before then, hopefully.
Okay, yeah, I just want to echo,
Yeah.
if you could pop that up, as I think it's very important.
Yeah.
I mean, you're happy, great, why are you
Yeah.
happy? What else can we do to make sure that, this is the place you want to be? So,
Yeah, and when I say protocol, I mean, how are we going to decide how many people to meet? Are we going to target certain parts of people's career? How many can we do per month, that kind of thing. Do we do it in person? Do we start with a survey online? Do we then ask them to come in? So that's, kind of what the decisions would go into the protocol.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. This is part of the stay interview. So, can you remind, what were the absentee levels across the district at like height of COVID and then as we've come down over the past years? It looks like it's about 10% a day, or 10% a day between teachers and paras if we have 1,000 employees or so, and then 120 absences that you need subs for the day.
Yeah, I don't have that exact data off the top of my head.
Because I remember it was at times like 200 people.
During COVID?
During COVID?
During COVID? Yeah. Well,
Like,
I don't know during COVID because we were home.
No, not COVID, like would have been the next year afterwards.
The next year.
We maxed out our ability to cover substitutes. I think 208
next
was
year.
the highest number or something.
Yeah,
On the
average is-
teacher side though, not including paras.
And we are just, teachers and paras, average is probably more like 80 to 90 per day absences, I would say. Like if you get to 120, 130, that's very high. So that must have been a really high year,
Well,
200.
Yeah, no, so my whole point of asking this question is that I don't know if there's anything, I can't remember the teacher contract, I don't know it intimately, haven't reviewed it, of where there is that opportunity or for incentivizing people to use less absences. I know people have it in their contract, as a union employee, you have certain rights and all of those things, but I don't know if there's opportunities to be able to encourage. We don't want people to come in sick, I'm not saying that, but there are, there are opportunities where we can encourage people to be in school more frequently, so we can have less use of subs or things like that. I don't know if there's, remember from the contract of in the stay interviews, there are teachers that are always in, and there are teachers who may not be in as frequently for various reasons, which are beyond the scope of this conversation and are personal, but I don't know if there's any incentives that we can create in that way.
So I think since they're professionals and we treat them as professionals, that we assume that they're here when they can be, and that when they're not, they have a good reason to be out. In the contract, after a certain number of days, they do need to provide a doctor's note, and I believe it's after the 4th day. We've tried to kind of move that up a little bit. It used to be after the 5th day, so you could be out a whole week. So that, I think, helps. They, by contract and by state statute, they get 15 days a year. The incentive actually is that when they retire, they can take a severance, which is unused sick days. They can pay out half of them up to a maximum, depending on when you're hired. So I think that's an incentive. For those that are going to retire from here, obviously.
Right.
But it's tricky.
Yes. Yeah, they are professionals, and there always is. It's just always a question of a staffing ability and what we can do and budget-wise and where we're going from there. I'm happy to see that 17 of the new teachers are from Milford. I think it's a great opportunity to live and work in this community and to get back from there. That's it.
Any other questions? Ms. Will-Pointon?
So the second bullet, or the first bullet point under record keeping, if I'm remembering correctly, at roughly this time last year, we were talking about the overwhelming number of boxes that were tucked away in all different places of past records of past employees. So that's done. We've digitized all of them.
We digitized every current employee and past employee of the records that we had to keep. So I actually got an email this morning from another district saying, was so-and-so tenured in Milford? I didn't recognize the name, so I looked it up. And then I went to the digital file. I didn't have to find someone in my department to go in the basement and find a file that may or may not be there. I was able just to pull it up in Google Drive and see that that individual was actually a substitute and not a contracted teacher. So I answered the email and boom, there it is.
Well,
So,
congratulations.
Yeah, it's
for
really
getting that done.
efficient.
Were you able to throw out some boxes of stuff?
Yes, yes.
Shred?
The service that took our files and digitized them, they disposed of them through a confidential shredding procedure that they had, so, yeah. Yeah, it feels good.
I'm sure. Other questions or comments, Ms. Mahler?
Along those same lines, I was actually going to ask about the exact same thing, the record keeping, about all of that going electronically and confidential disposal and shredding of the records, so we don't have to worry about them being found somewhere in an old file
Correct.
cabinet. I assume that part of the digitization process, along with, I would assume, a team from the kids department as well, incorporates the necessary layers of security to all of those profiles as well. Like when you talk about accessing something in Google Drive, I have a little heart palpitation, and I assume there's more to it than that, that limits who actually has access to those particular drives, so.
Yeah, it's a shared workspace drive in Google, and only 4 people have access to it. Me,
Makes
Lenny,
that heart
and,
palpitation slow down,
and
so
2
thank
people
you.
there, so, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Nobody else has
Okay.
access to it.
Right.
And it can't be shared, right?
Right,
Like
it
it's,
can't be,
it's
right.
in that folder, and like
It's
Wendy
restricted.
can't even share it.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's only the 4. If you need to share it, you'd have to print it and scan it again.
And that's a big, obviously, part of when we found a company to do this, how do they, what's the kind of custody, chain of custody of all the rights? Yeah, social security numbers and, yeah.
You say it like it's an, of course, an obvious move,
Yeah.
and it may be for you, but it is not for every
Yep,
school
that's
district,
right.
so
Appreciate you
that's
asking. Yep.
helpful, thank you.
Other questions or comments on the annual report? All right, thank you, Ms. Pasna.
Thank you.
Move on to the next item.
Okay, so the next item is my monthly report, which has the personnel changes for the month, job postings, retirements, resignations, termination, and stipend appointments. You'll see this month we have, I think it is, coaching stipends for the winter for both Foreign High School and Jonathan Law. As well as, I just wanted to point out that we have 5 retirements so far this year, 4 at the end of the school year and 1 occurring in January. Kind of a high number for this time of year, but we do offer an incentive in the teacher contract that if they give us their notice of retirement by December 15th, they can get an extra $500 in addition to whatever their severance pay is. So we got, I think, 3 or 4 last week. So I think it'll be kind of a standstill for a while, and then come spring, the number will obviously go up a little bit as well.
Questions for Ms. Kapasna? On the monthly report. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members, and we'll move to the last item under the superintendent's report, which is the disbursement report, led by Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Dr. McKay, Ms. Glenn, members of the board. In your package, you will find a list of all cash disbursements over the amount of $1,500 for the month of November. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from board members? All right, seeing none, we can move on.
That completes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. All right, move on to consent agenda. Ms. Boynton, do you have a motion for consent agenda?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes, the consent agenda for the November 11th and November 25th, 2024 Board of Education Business and Committee of the Whole meetings.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Board comment. Any board comments? Ms. Doyle.
I just want to say thank you for the entire district for all the work for the Powder Puff game and the Thanksgiving game. It's nice to see you in the pouring rain in the middle of the field on Thanksgiving. Commend Law for winning both games. Yep, Powder Puff and football. I'm happy to not be in the rain any longer, even though days later. But more I want to report in is to see 2 well-attended events, even in the pouring rain, to see Powder Puff, to see football game. It takes a lot of dedication from our security, from our athletic teams, from our professionals, administrators, everyone to be there, to be part of it, to see the 2 athletic directors there at each event, and the support of the community regardless of the rain. It was just nice to see and really appreciate that, and that's really what we're trying to do every day, is to have that support of the community and to come forward. And I look forward to Powder Puff next year with my niece Charlotte as the quarterback. Yeah.
Nice. Nice little plug. Any other board comment this evening? I just want to wish everybody again, I know we'll see each other next week, but Happy New Year and happy holidays to everybody. Since this is our last business meeting of the year. And we'll see everybody on the 16th with your homework assignments. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Preet. 9:06. Do we have anybody object to adjournment at 9:06? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.